That's right. We have him back. He's Ryan Haygood, President and CEO, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. It's been too long.
Too long, Steve. Too long. It's great to be back. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you. Hey, listen, I say November 2nd, 2021 election. You say what? Play a word association with me.
I say early voting for the first time in New Jersey. I say early voting provides voters for the first time ever to participate in souls to the polls. I see voters inspired to get out and vote. And I see a very, very close election reflecting a New Jersey that's deeply divided along a number of lines, including racial lines.
Yeah, let's do that, right? No one has done it yet. No one has had the whatever courage or whatever it takes to put it on the table. New Jersey's divided, suburban, urban, obviously the rural piece, the North-South Jersey piece is what it is. But if you look at this vote in November 2nd, we're taping this at the end of 2021, it was divided by race largely, correct? And if so, why?
Absolutely. Well, because New Jersey, look, New Jersey is a fascinating state. Really, really blessed to live here. It's really, I think, in some senses, a tale of two states. On one hand, New Jersey is one of the most racially diverse states in the country. It's also a state where that racial diversity exists alongside some really entrenched residential segregation. We're also a state of incredible wealth. I think second only to Maryland.
Connecticut's up there.
So we might be second or third to one of those.
Go ahead.
So we're a state where this incredible prosperity exists, but Steve, it also exists alongside some real punishing poverty. And so we're a state of great complexity. There's a beauty around our diversity and our prosperity, but that prosperity, that diversity exists along some real entrenched systematic segregation and structural racism. And so I think what we saw play out in the 2021 election, in which every seat was up in the legislature, including for the governor, was a New Jersey that showed up and voted their values, whatever those values were. But those values exist alongside, I think, a real broad racial spectrum.
Hold on 1 second, because I want to talk about the racial wealth gap in a second. Do you believe, not across the board, because generalizing is dangerous, but that in large part, there's a Black agenda and a white agenda, or Black and brown agenda, and then are there separate agendas, or does everyone want and need childcare for their kids so they can work? Everyone wants to be able to be confident that they can get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Health care is there really, they're two separate agendas?
Well, so here I think I draw real inspiration from and you and I have talked about this offline, but what the 2020 census showed us, right? That New Jersey, according to the data from the census, will soon be a majority people of color state. People of color today are about 48% of the population of New Jersey. And I think what that says to your question is that we have an incredible opportunity to welcome into the Democratic fold, into our state, new voices, new racially diverse voices, in which we can think about how we all exist, how we all flourish together. But we also, I think, exist in New Jersey, in a New Jersey in which we all stand on a foundation that's cracked. And these are real cracks of structural racism going back to our founding. Now, Steve, you and I, we did not create those cracks of structural racism. We inherited those from previous generations. But I do think this is a real moment for us to be honest about what the foundation looks like and why it's cracked, and how do we collectively, to your point, begin to repair those cracks.
But at the same time, Ryan, I've said this to you before, offline and on the air. Our conversations seem similar, whether we're on the air or off. There are a fair number of friends of mine who I grew up with in Essex County. I'm born and raised in Newark, as you know, but a lot of these guys born and raised in the same, quote, neighborhood now live in the suburbs. A lot of them voted for Trump. They voted for Chitterelli. A fair number of them, when it comes to the issues you're talking about, they'll still argue that, yes, of course, there's, quote, racism, but structural racism, institutional racism. My kid had a hard time getting into such and such school. My parents came from Italy and my grandparents came from Italy. And there is not the same appetite, in my view, for the discussion you and I have had for 10 years now with a lot of folks. Or why are you smiling like that?
Well, be so,
Am I that
that's
far
why,
off?
that's why, look, that's why I think you're essential to New Jersey. And I'm not just trying to, as young folks,
You can go ahead, kiss up.
I'm not
like
trying
it.
to
Go
gas
ahead.
you up. I'm not trying to gas you up, but I do think that one of the challenges that we have in our state, right, is that we like to think of ourselves largely as a progressive bastion, right, a beacon for democracy. And that's certainly part of our story. But I don't think as a state, going back to our founding, we've really ever grappled with who we actually are. So at the organization where I work, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, I'm incredibly blessed to work alongside an incredible team of lawyers, PhDs, community organizers, advocates.
And it's a diverse team, racially, culturally, gender, everything.
The Institute reflects the broader diversity of our state. It has to do the work that we do. But we spend, as you know, Steve, we spend a lot of time looking at the data, looking at racial disparities, which we think reflect real deep racial inequality. And the reason those numbers matter is because they go back to the founding of New Jersey. We were a state that at its founding provided 150 acres of land to every English white settling family. We're also a state that gave each of those white English settling families an additional 150 acres of land for every enslaved Black person that worked on that land. That's how we developed our system of property in New Jersey in a very racialized way. So why you say, well, Ryan, why does that matter in 2021? You're going back 300 years. The reason that matters is because we began with a very racialized system of property and defining property, who could own property, who couldn't. And we carried that forward through a series of practices and policies over time, including redlining in cities like where I live. So here's how that shows up today in 2021. In New Jersey today, as we mentioned, is one of the wealthiest states in the country. The individual net wealth for white adults, white adults, $106,000. That's among the highest individual net wealth of anyone in the country. But by staggering, really stark, shameful contrast, the individual net wealth for Black adults is 179 United States dollars. Now, here's the thing, right? That number causes your head to explode. Less than the cost, certainly, of a laptop on which we're having this conversation, less than the cost of an iPhone, really less than the cost of groceries for a small family. And what we argue at the Institute is that those numbers are by design, right? We have built a system in New Jersey that has racialized home ownership. And because home ownership is the primary driver of wealth, the individual, the median net wealth of Black families is far less than white folks by design. So that statewide, about 80% of white people in New Jersey own their homes versus about 41% of Black people. Now, see, the thing is, it's not that Black folks are allergic to wealth, don't want to build wealth. It's because we've designed a system to advantage some and disadvantage others. And that is part of the foundation that we stand on that's cracked.
I got a minute left. Is that much of the reason why you're pushing for a study on reparations? You're not calling for reparations, but you're saying we need to understand and have a real discussion about reparations, because if we don't.
Well, that's the precious moment we have, Steve. You and I have been having this very conversation for
many years.
A decade. Now comes the need for us to have that conversation formally in New Jersey. So that's why we've stood with Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, Senator Sandra Cunningham, almost every Black elected official and supportive white electeds to introduce a New Jersey Reparations Task Force bill. Quickly, Stevie would do two things. One, it would have this conversation. People don't know that New Jersey was considered the slave state of the North. Why? And then a related piece, part two, so what do we do in view of the fact that we live in the shadow and the enduring impact of slavery? What kinds of policies and practices do we need to invest to repair that harm, to fill in the cracks of our foundation, and together to build a new one? That's the work that's before us. It's a precious opportunity, and we can't afford to miss it.
I enjoy talking to you, my lord. I don't, well, we'll talk offline.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Steve.
You know what you do more than anything else, my friend? You get me to think, and I'm confident I'm not the only one. You're getting a lot of people to think right now. That's what we're here for. Hey, Ryan, you take care of yourself. Thanks, my friend.
Take care, Steve. Be well.
You got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by MD Advantage Insurance Company, RWJ Barnabas Health, Wells Fargo, Community Food Bank of New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, Suez North America, the New Jersey Education Association, the Russell Berry Foundation, and by the Adler Aphasia Center. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network.
I'm very grateful that I'm still here.
That's me and my donor when we went to celebrate our first anniversary.
With a new kidney, I have strength.
They gave me a new lease on life.
I'm still going everywhere and exploring new places.
Nobody thought I was going to be here. Nobody.
And I look forward to getting older with my wife. That's possible now.
We're transforming lives through innovative kidney treatments, living donor programs, and world-renowned care at 2 of New Jersey's premier hospitals.
They gave me my normal life back. It's a blessing.
RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.